I'm Sideshow. I'm back with more over.gg coverage of DreamHack Winter, and this time I've got an interview with coolmatt from Fnatic, who have just finished playing the finals. Unfortunately lost out in incredibly close fashion to Misfits just at the end there. I've got him raw off his defeat, unfortunately. So how do you feel the whole event has gone for you so far, like in total as a general thing?
There's been a lot of technical issues, a lot of waiting around. It's all right besides that. I'm not a very in-depth answer. I don't know. Without complaining, I just have a lot of complaints about it. I don't know if I want to put that stuff in there.
Oh, how do you feel your team performed? Like, if you're going to rack up the performance of your team against what you were expecting coming into it, and how you thought you'd match up against the other sides with like a new addition to your roster, how do you feel like you guys were able to go there? Because you did make a really deep run. Like, although you got beaten in the finals, second place, and you managed to knock out Nip there, so it's not like you had an easy route. So what do you think of how you matched up against the competition there?
I think we honestly met our own expectations. We went into it expecting to beat Misfits, just that's how our scrims went. We beat them like very consistently. I think that our roster is stronger after the change. We are still going through a lot of identity issues with like comps, like who plays what. But I think in long term, our roster is going to be stronger for it.
Okay, you've not been seen very much recently since the Overwatch Open, and in fact at the Overwatch Open I was looking through the teams that you actually played against, and you didn't really play against other top tier teams on your path through apart from Envious at the end. You kind of dodged Cloud9 in a way, or they dodged you because they lost early on and got upset by Method, and then you played against Method and Immortals, right? So it's been a while since we've seen you actually take on top teams, and clearly at this event you've performed, but why have you been skulking in the shadows in some sense? Is there a reason for that?
We generally don't play online tournaments, and most people judge, a team's like where a team stands in the hierarchy based off of online tournaments, and we focus mainly on LANs. So that's where you'll see us. I mean, it's funny that we didn't get to play against Cloud9 because we actually haven't scrimmed them or played against them in a tournament since the Gamescom qualifiers, and this months and months. But I would like to play their old roster. I'm looking forward to playing a lot of the NA teams too. With all these LANs coming up too, you're going to see a lot more of us.
Talking about Cloud9, another team that you haven't faced is FaZe as well. And then at the Overwatch Open, you were kind of stuck on the North American side, the way that they segregated the different sides of the bracket. Would you have liked an opportunity to prove yourself against the Europeans? When you were at Gamescom, you guys knocked out Misfits in 2-1, 2-1. Do you like the fact that you were able to go up against the Europeans?
Oh, for sure. Everyone seems to, there's just a European bias, I think that we have really good results against FaZe, and not really concerned about them. But I'm always happy to play internationally. It helps prove ourselves more.
Talking about proving yourself, you had a decent run through the group stage, but then you ended up losing to Misfits, and you then went on into the playoff stage to take on Nip. What were your thoughts coming into the event about Misfits and Nip? You said that you were beating Misfits in scrims and things. I assume that was from the boot camp. Yes. But even before that, looking forwards at them, and especially at Nip, who had kind of been dominant, and that's what all the talk was about. What did you think coming into it?
Well, I know that everyone saw Nip as the favorite, and actually our performance was worse against them than Misfits, but I guess they seemed to be a more stagnant team. They didn't make the switches to deal with what we were playing, and I guess we might have underestimated Misfits a little bit going into the tournament.
You had some really great stuff against Ninjas that nobody else was really doing. They were all getting beaten by them. Misfits has a terrible record against them online since the Overwatch Open, where they were able to beat them. They had, I think it's 3, it might even be 4 best-of-3 losses in the finals of different online cups. What were your thoughts on how you were going to counter them coming into it? We saw a lot of you guys splitting up and playing from different high grounds. What were your thoughts, and how did you develop a strategy to take them down?
We took them to points where we could abuse range and crossfire. So Nabani is one of our best maps. And that's the good example is the first point defense, where we have 2 hit scans, cross-firing, just shooting at them, and they have no range. You avoid the hook and their comp like falls apart. They can't really dive you effectively with it. And we just applied to the same logic to Volskaya, and we played around their comp with double hit scan crossfires.
How much of an impact does... Oh, and Zen, right. How much of an impact... Oh, actually, before I talk about that, can you tell me a little bit about your thoughts on like Ana v Zen? We saw Misfits going to Zen a lot as well, and Kusta, I hear, is a very strong advocate of using Zen in a lot of these lineups. Is that only against tanks, or what are your thoughts on how that works?
It's really complicated for us, honestly. That's like one of our biggest topics of discussion when we're stratting is like, when do we play Ana? When do we play Zen? Who do we play Ana against? It's every team, it varies, and every point it varies. If you're going to get dove really hard by like Monkey Genji, then Ana is probably better at keeping herself alive. If the risk is low for your backline to get dove, then the Zen is better for helping you kill targets. So that's how we decide when to play what.
How much of an impact does Roffelgater have in these kind of things? Because a lot of these teams don't have coaches or are just starting to develop them. I talked with the complexity coach just earlier as well about his role within the team and what he's doing for them. So can you give me some insight into how the strategies are developed in that kind of sense and what impact Roffelgater has?
Well, he has a very active role in our stratting sessions always. He's one of like the most vocal participants. So when it comes down to like what map we should play and against who, he has a record of our scrims to show us what maps we're strongest on. He has team comps that we should play against who and where. He helps us develop like actual tactics, splitting or like whatever tactic it might be. So he's actually a really valuable like asset to have.
Do you feel like other teams aren't making enough use of a coach, or is he just like the diamond in the rough that you managed to pick out? What's your thought process on the wider topic of coaches within the scene? Should everyone have one?
I think everyone should have one, yeah. I think that everyone should have a coach and an analyst. There's a lot of stuff that like, it's a fresh set of eyes on a lot of topics, and there's a lot of things like managing your schedules and scrims that you don't have time to do as a player. And so I would recommend getting a coach that has knowledge of the game, that has like an open mind and is like very motivated and willing to commit a lot of time to playing with you and helping you.
Coming into this tournament, you had parted with IDDQD and you'd brought Hafikool into the roster as well, and that seems to have been, in some cases, in some team comps, kind of a direct switch out, but in quite a lot of other ones, we saw him on the Diva and you playing more of like what you would consider the DPS role. So what were your thoughts integrating him into the roster? What does his hero pool add, and how did you have to adapt what you were thinking in order to bring him in?
Well, we brought him in initially to play DPS, and he still plays projectile DPS for us. Like, he's an extremely good Genji and Hanzo, but during like our early scrims, we kind of just decided that our best success was when we played what we're playing now, like me on Soldier and him on Diva. He's less comfortable on Soldier than me, and I have experience in the past playing DPS. So, like I said earlier, we're still deciding ultimately who's going to play what. Maybe we'll switch it up, but right now we're having decent success with what we have, so we might stick with it. And
looking forward to MSI, which is the next tournament coming up as well, which is in a couple of weeks. You'll be also facing NIP there with Kongdu Panthera and Rise Nation as well, who are like an upcoming team. What do you think of the competition there, and how this and these results are going to affect how teams prepare for that one?
I never played against Rise Nation. I don't know any of their players. They managed to make it through, I think, as in an upset. I kind of feel like the NA meta might be behind, so I'm probably not really worried about them. What I heard about Kongdu is that they're a weaker Korean team. Like, they're not bad, but not top tier. I think that it'll be us and NIP in the finals, and NIP will have had time to like really adjust to how we beat them and rethink their strategy.
So is that for you, because you won't be able to see the adaptations that they're making, do you subscribe to the idea that you'll have to change things up just anyway, just to keep things fresh and stop their adaptations working on you? Or are you just going to purely work on your own game and avoid kind of this counter strat meta that might develop?
Right now we're working on our own game. Like we're still deciding what our own game is, and like you start there and then you start to work on the counters. We'll play NIP between now and then, I'm sure, or get some info about what they play, and just, if we have to re-strategize, we will.
So just to touch briefly on the finals that we just saw coming up there, you guys seem to really think in depth about the maps that you pick, and the map draft process here was slightly more strategic perhaps than other tournaments that are currently going on or have previously run. So what were your thoughts on like your ethos for selecting maps or trying to ban maps against other teams?
I mean, you just do your research on the teams and you play them in scrims. You figure out what maps they like to play, what maps they don't like to play, and you just ban accordingly. I like that you're able to ban two and then pick one in this tournament, because we were able to pick a map that we're strong on. And I think our drafts went pretty well, especially against NIP. Like we managed to get them to play what we wanted them to play. So, like I said, you scout them out and just ban accordingly based on your success in scrims.
Do you think that you kind of did Misfits a favor by knocking NIP out of the tournament in the semifinals? Obviously, you can't help it. That's your path. You have to do it. But do you feel like there was a strange rock, paper, scissors element where you had the strategies to be able to defeat NIP, NIP had the comp to be able to defeat Misfits, and Misfits managed to beat you? Do you subscribe to that, or do you have a different opinion on it?
I mean, from what I hear from everybody is that NIP has beaten Misfits always. So maybe like we did them a favor, but I still think that we could have won against either team. So like ultimately we have to play them both at some point. So we should have been able to beat them on our own.
What about the final then? What happened in that game against Misfits, or the group stage game against Misfits? What's that matchup like? How are things not working out for you? Because you were incredibly close at points to just taking the series outright. There were just moments where it looked like you were going to take it and that was going to be it. But they managed to claw it back and eventually they took the series from you. So what's the matchup like between you and Misfits?
We were doing a lot of on-the-fly swaps to things we haven't tried before, and as you saw in Hollywood, we pulled out a tracer to match their tracers. We felt like their main strength was their tracer play. Like Soon performed really well on LAN, and so we started to match their tracer, and immediately we had crazy success on Hollywood. I think that had we done the same and just mirrored them on Dorado, we would have won.
It's been a very interesting tournament. I think people, when they were looking at it, were really expecting NIP to go really far. And so even though Misfits have won it, one of the big storylines is going to be the fact that you guys managed to upset them, and you've come from not playing the European teams for so long, you've kind of just been stuck battling Envious and getting shut out there for a little while. And now you've proven yourself on a global scale. Is this something you're hoping to compound on further?
I'm glad that we had the opportunity to actually play against better teams and show that we're still a top team, we're still a contender, and even with our roster changes, that it's not going to affect us. It'll make us stronger.
Okay, well, good luck going forwards to Masters Gaming Arena, and I hope Hafikool finds a place on your team. Yeah. But that's only because he's a personal friend of mine.
He's my friend too.
He's your friend too. Yeah, he was actually excellent in the games as well. I thought he was playing really well.
His personality agrees with us a lot. I don't know, we get along with him, we like him. I think that we'll probably play with him for a long time.
Okay, very nice to see, and good luck for the future games.
Yeah.